So, guys, ever since the Giants kicked off training camp, their offense just hasn't looked the way fans were hoping. Instead of building momentum with each practice, the same issues have continued to show up day after day. Jaxson Dart is still getting comfortable in the system, and the offense is trying to build chemistry with several new playmakers. In fact, after putting together his best performance of training camp on day 6, many expected Dart and this offense to finally turn the corner. But that progress just hasn't been there consistently. And now, after everything that unfolded on day 7, it's becoming harder to ignore that this offense may have a much bigger problem than anyone expected. Plus, the Giants also made several roster moves that could impact the team moving forward. So, let me break down exactly what happened at practice, which players stood out, and what those roster moves could mean for the Giants moving forward. What's up, Big Blue? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Giants. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Alright, so let's start with what really caught my eye on day 7, and that's this offense. Look, I know it's still practice. I know we shouldn't overreact to every single practice, but when you see the same pattern show up over and over, you start to wonder. Jaxson Dart opened the day going 6 for 10 with 2 interceptions in that very first period. On one of those throws, he had Xavier Gipson wide open deep down the field, and honestly, he just held onto the ball a beat too long. By the time he let it go, the corner had time to recover and break it up. That's the kind of thing that gets fixed with more reps, sure, but it's also the kind of thing that makes you a little nervous heading into the season. And here's the thing, guys, this wasn't an isolated moment. The Giants' #1 offense actually went up against the twos on defense today, and the offense still looks sloppy at times. That's not a great sign when your starters are struggling against backups. I know it's only camp, I know these things tend to smooth out once the pads come off and the real installs settle in, but you also can't just ignore it either. This is a group that needs to start stacking good days, not just good moments inside of bad days. I mean, look, the good news is Dart did settle in during the red zone period. He went 2 for 3 with a couple touchdowns there, one to Darnell Mooney and another to Pat Ricard in the flat, and Cam Scapo punched one in on the ground too. So, there's flashes, there's progress, but then he turns around and faces the first team defense in that final red zone period and goes 1 for 3 with a sack and a false start mixed in. Eventually, the offense muscled the ball down to the 1-yard line, and Dart found Theo Johnson for a score on a broken play, which honestly tells you a lot about his ability to improvise when the play breaks down. So, it's a mixed bag, up one series, down the next. There was one more note from the offensive line that stood out to me too. With so much roster shuffling happening in camp, rookie Francis Mauigoa got a good chunk of run today, and from what I'm hearing, he really impressed people working the run game. That's a name to remember because when your number 10 overall pick starts flashing early like this, it usually means good things down the road. Now, I do want to give credit where it's due. Away from the quarterback spot, there were some bright spots offensively. Malik Nabers has now practiced 3 days in a row, doing individual drills and routes on air, and I know that might not sound like much on paper, but for a guy who's coming off an injury, building up that workload day by day is exactly what you want to see. Last week, he had a day off after just 2 days of work, so going 3 straight now, that's real progress, and from what I'm hearing, he's trending in the right direction. And then there's Odell Beckham Jr., who's putting together back-to-back really strong days at camp. He looks spry out there, gaining yards after the catch, hauling in passes from every quarterback on the roster, and getting first-team reps alongside Calvin Austin. He even got the biggest cheer of the day from the fans in attendance after a nice deep sideline grab. Look, guys, this man didn't play football at all last year, so every single practice he's out there, he's shaking off more rust, and you can genuinely see him getting better each day. He's fighting for a roster spot, and right now, he's making a strong case. And honestly, guys, that's the kind of story you love to see out of camp. A veteran who's fallen out of the league for a season, grinding his way back into shape, and reminding everyone why fans still root so hard for him. On the flip side, rookie receiver Malachi Fields had a limited workload again, working with a trainer on the side field for a second straight day. Nothing seems too serious based on what the team is saying, but it's worth keeping an eye on, especially with how deep this receiver room already is. Okay, so that wraps up the offensive side of things, and honestly, guys, it's a bit of a roller coaster right now. Some real positives mixed in with some concerning patterns, and that's exactly why I think this offense is worth watching closely over the next couple of weeks. Now let's shift over to the defense, because honestly, that unit had a much different kind of day. Arvell Reese was lined up off the edge quite a bit today, getting used in stunts during a pass-heavy practice. We hadn't really seen him work off the ball like that before. Mostly he's been playing inside the box, but now the coaching staff is clearly adding another wrinkle to his game plan, and that's something he actually did back at Ohio State. Expect that role to keep growing as the season gets closer. But there was also an injury scare on defense today. Slot corner Andrew Phillips went down with what looked like a leg issue and didn't finish practice. He stayed on the ground for a bit before trying to jog it off, and Darius Washington stepped in to take his reps. According to the coaching staff, it's being labeled as a minor issue, nothing too serious, which is obviously a relief because the Giants need him healthy and on the field once the games start counting. Now let's talk about the back end of this defense, because there's a real battle brewing at safety, and honestly, this might be one of the more interesting position battles to watch all camp. Raheem Layne came away with an interception and a forced fumble today, right place, right time on both plays. Elijah Campbell also picked one off and broke up a couple of passes, and honestly, he's been physical every time he's out there. Meanwhile, it wasn't the best day for Tyler Nubin, who got picked on in coverage, giving up 2 red zone touchdowns, one to Theo Johnson and another to Juju Smith-Schuster, who made what was arguably the catch of the day against him. Now look, he did show up to camp noticeably slimmer, so there's clearly effort being put in, but right now this safety competition is wide open, and that's exactly what you want your coaching staff pushing for. At cornerback, Deonte Banks continues to have himself a really strong camp, working opposite Greg Newsome with the starting group today. Meanwhile, Paulson Adebo spent more time with the second unit, and he actually got beat on a downfield catch by Dalen Cambray. Now, I'm not trying to pile on here, but when you're getting paid the kind of money Adebo is getting paid, you expect to be holding down that starting job in year 2, no question about it. This is definitely something to watch as camp rolls on, because if this trend keeps up, the coaching staff is going to have a real decision to make before week 1 even gets here. I'll also mention, the second-team offense had a strong showing behind Jameis Winston, who threw 6 red zone touchdowns today, including a couple to Jalen Hyatt, and Juju Smith-Schuster hauled in a nice grab in tight coverage as well. And over on special teams, rookie kicker Dominic Savada was perfect again, 10 for 10, including a 56-yarder. That kid is really starting to heat up, and it looks like he's clearly the better option on this roster right now. Alright, so we've covered the offense, we've covered the defense. Now, let's get into those roster moves, because the Giants were busy off the field too, and honestly, this part of the day says a lot about how the front office is thinking heading into the final stretch of camp. They signed veteran cornerback David Long Jr., a former third-round pick who's appeared in 80 games over a 7-year career, with his best season coming back in 2021 when he allowed a passer rating of just 79.7. He's played in a bunch of different schemes throughout his career, so he should be able to pick things up quickly and give this cornerback room some more competition. Joining him is DJ James, a 6th-round pick who spent time in the UFL last season after getting cut by New England Patriots. He was actually a really productive college corner, and from what I'm told, he's got a ton of personality too. Both of these guys are walking into a crowded room, but that's the point. The Giants want the best players to win those jobs. Think about it. You've already got names like Adebo, Deonte Banks, Greg Newsome, and Nick Jones in that mix, plus Darius Washington capable of playing the slot. Adding 2 more experienced bodies just raises the level of competition across the board, and that's never a bad thing this time of year. On the other side, the Giants moved on from 2 players. Wide receiver Bo Collins, who made the 53-man roster last year, is now gone with a waived injured designation. And defensive tackle Roy Robertson Harris, who tore his Achilles back in May, is finally heading to injured reserve after the team held out hope he could return late in the season. With more depth being added up front, they just couldn't hold that roster spot for him any longer. It's a tough break for a guy who was hoping to work his way back mid-season, but that's just how camp goes sometimes. Decisions have to be made, and the roster has to keep moving forward. So, look guys, when you step back and look at day 7 as a whole, this offense clearly still has some work to do, especially when it comes to protecting the football and finishing drives against the top defense. But there were real bright spots too. Nabers trending up, Odell looking like himself again, and this defense continuing to make plays all over the field. Training camp is exactly the time to work through these growing pains, so I wouldn't panic just yet, but this is definitely a group worth watching closely over the next few practices. So now let me know in the comments what you think about Dart's performance so far, and whether you're worried about this offense heading into the season.